Hey everyone, and welcome to the Well Sport podcast. We have a very special guest today. We are sitting down with Simon Thomas. Simon is the director of and operations, and he is the physical performance coordinator and player development for the Boston Red Sox. He has his roles in plenty of different areas here, so I'm excited to dive into all of them with him. But Simon, thanks so much for taking the time to hop on today.
No, appreciate the time, and so I'm honoured to be number 49, and I'll be looking forward to tuning in for number 50 guests. So well done on growing the podcast so far, and so looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, that means the world. That means the world, Simon. I absolutely love doing this. So I mean, and it's honestly, got to give all the credit to the guests. I've been able to sit down and talk to amazing people like yourself, and it's made me a lot better at my job. I've learned a ton from it, but I'm just grateful people like you take the time to sit down. So I truly do appreciate you taking the time today. I know you're busy.
Yeah, no worries. It's a good it's a really good time of year. We're sort of in reflection mode as we turn over from one season to the other, and then for me. Personally, it's sort of the first round of the journey into baseball of a new sport, and so reflecting on that is a good time.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into all that today. So I'm really looking forward to it. To kind of kick things off, I'd kind of just like to hear you share your story. I mean, just from where you started to where how you ended up here today.
Yeah, it was I would say it started a very like a linear straight line that I've created a winding journey off the back of that linear start. I think to reflect in reverse, I've been in baseball and with the Red Sox just since February this year, so sort of coming up on the end of the first season within this sport, which I wanted to take on as a different challenge and something new and bring. I think the Red Sox were looking for non-American, non-baseball to come in and look at things from a different lens. So Nick Shedd, who is our director, had that in mind with filling this role when as one of the sort of the criteria that was of interest when we sort of applied and interviewed at the back end of last year around this time. And at that period, the bulk of my sort of 20 odd years of experience have been in rugby.
Mm,
Rugby across New Zealand, Australia, Japan, and various other countries, either as a touring team or as a consultant across different sort of performance structures and programs as well. So limited exposure in some other sporting performance environments, working one on one with some guys in boxing and MMA and across a couple of the women's
interesting.
sports with netball and hockey athletes back in New Zealand, but 99% rugby sort of up until this time being the main sport for us in New Zealand. So
Mm.
the couple of years before getting here, I was based in Perth over in Western Australia. Had some staff in the organisation there, coaching and general manager and some of the medical team that I'd worked with back in New Zealand, and they were wanting to sort of reshape the Western Force organisation that had been through it was a professional Super Rugby team and its competition there. It sort of got removed and went into like an amateur phase and then recalibrated and re-entered post-COVID back into professionalism. So
Mm.
we just needed, it was a bit of a rebuild project from amateur back to professional and reset standards and culture and put some structures in place there, which was a good challenge. And then before that, I had been over in Austin, Texas. I had a coach that I did some work with in a consulting role in Japan, and he'd been coaching in Japan and took on one of the major league rugby sides over here in the US. And he just reached out and asked if I wanted to help him build something new from the ground up and take on sort of a winless organization and turn it into a championship one and something sustainable. And then that was appealing at the time because I'd been with the Crusaders organization in New Zealand in rugby for 8 years. So I'd been in the same place and the same sort of system for 12 years, working through from the academy to the development teams, semi-pro and like minor league
Okay.
type system over there, and to taking over that team and assisting that team for 4 years where we were able to make a final but unable to win a championship, but taking over that program. And we was fortunate to be there. We won four in a row. And then I handed
Holy
that
cow.
program over to those who were around me, and they continued to win four more afterwards. So it's nice to sort of see what success looks like on a daily basis, know that you're only a very, very small part of it, but you do, you play your part. But yeah, and before that, so it's been a journey of building teams sort of from the ground up, new entry teams coming in and entering a competition, or teams like that who have a history of success and then didn't succeed for a while and trying to find ways to get back to that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but mostly rugby, but a lot of very quality people along the way.
What a cool story. I just learned so much from you, and it's so interesting to hear about how you started with that team that was struggling at the time, and then you eventually helped. I mean, one small part in a lot of pieces of the puzzle, right? But that being said, you built systems in place there where it's a lot easier to hand off when these systems are running smoothly. Right. So, how did you take that team, build the systems, and build them to a place where you're like, okay, we're in a good place now. So even if I did leave, this team could still keep running efficiently.
Yeah, I guess that's been the culture of the teams that I learned my craft, and like that was the culture of how they operate. It was like you're just a custodian of that environment for the time that you are lucky and fortunate to be within it, and you leave it better for whoever comes after you, and whoever's next to you. You set them up because you want them to either live the great things that you got to, or if you didn't quite make it, then you want them to. So
Mm,
that's just sort of the way the organizations really work is like if you win, I win. If I win, you win. We all win. We all get better and sort of chase dreams together. So it's sort of in the DNA sort of ingrained in me, I guess, to sort of look at things that way. One of the
yeah.
first things coming onto this role. In the coordinator role with the Red Sox, was the first question was like, now which one of our coaches is the next me, and how do we get them ready? And so
Interesting.
and then while I'm here, how do I make it better for them so they get it better than I got it? And that's just the first walk in the door is sort of that piece. And so to establish that as the culture of the organization was a really important part. And I've been able to fortunate to be able to do that a couple of times or assist with that a few times at a few different organizations in different ways. A Crusaders that has a blueprint of success, but was probably trying to follow the old blueprint that used to work with a new group and a new demographic and step back and go,
Mm,
actually, we need to start our culture with like, who do we have? What are they good at? And bring our culture outwards from that rather than what used to work. Now, how do we fit this new group into that model? And so
yeah.
that was really, I think, beneficial with some of the other challenges that I've enjoyed taking on going into different countries and different environments, knowing that you can't just copy paste something that worked somewhere else, but you can apply that process of like, who are we? Where are we? Who do we represent? How do we go about it? What are our strengths? And then build out from there. And
Yeah.
then look at like, how do you establish a system that each person coming in that's what gets handed over is who are you? What are your strengths? How do we let those flourish? Now, how do you help others around you with that? And so whatever the department is, whatever the sport is, that tends to be a pretty successful recipe because it's not just a set list of items or a certain way of doing things, but just a way of thinking.
Yeah. How do you help teams identify those things when because we hear all the time, like, how important it is to have a positive team culture. I do a lot of work building culture with teams and things like that. So this will be good for me as well. But what are
Mm.
like the first things you try to identify, like your first couple months on the job for the Red Sox example, like those key concepts where you're like, okay, these are the things that we need to focus on. Just bringing awareness to those things and then giving the processes in place from there.
Yeah, probably found like identifying the leadership styles that you have in your group and like are you built around like servant leaders and servant leadership style
Mm,
or what do you have within your group and everybody leads in a different way. Some people like lead by what they say, some people lead by what they do,
yeah.
some people lead because they've got so much experience that they can pass that on. Some like young people coming in don't have the experience, but they're so grateful to be there because it's their first time that's infectious for the older people who have maybe got a little bit jaded and are starting to get a little bit over it, and then
Sure.
and then they lead with energy and enthusiasm, and so everybody's got this little piece that
Yeah.
adds into that picture, and so it's just trying to find like ways to give people the permission to like lead with that because one thing that we looked at in the Crusader environment was like it had almost got to a point where it was frowned upon to sort of if you brought yourself, it was seen as being about yourself and putting yourself above the team. where actually like being yourself and bringing yourself in a way that adds to the team is about that. That's being team focused, not self focused. And that's been a really interesting, I would say, an interesting challenge within baseball. Not that people are inherently like selfish, but just the culture of the sport is, if you're working your way through a minor league system, your individual performances are what get you elevated, not
Sure.
necessarily how the team that you are playing for performs. But if the team's not performing, it's harder for you to perform, but you could still
Yeah.
potentially do it. So that the balance between individual and team is really interesting, sort of through the minor leagues, especially like being in the chat groups across the system. I've never seen so like there's player movement on a daily basis, which is
Yeah.
fascinating coming from sports where this is your squad for the year, barring a few injuries and a couple of new faces, and then it might change a little bit annually. Like every
Yeah.
day, someone's changing team within the org. They're swapping between organizations. Someone's getting brought out of a game because they got traded to another city, and so
Yeah.
it's fascinating in terms of its moving parts. But it's almost when you zoom out, you look at the ability to create like a connected team culture within like a minor league affiliate team that's constantly changing faces
Yeah. What a challenge.
is a real challenge because once you get to the big leagues, your locker room culture is huge, but you
Sure.
don't really get to develop how you go about it through the minor leagues because it's an individual progression within a
Yeah.
system. So there's a really interesting balance there that myself and some of our mental skills department are trying to like unpack and figure out like how do you get this balance right because it's a really fascinating challenge and quite a unique puzzle.
It's so interesting to hear, and shout out my guy Oscar. He was one of my he was on like episode 20 or something. I learned a ton from him. He's been fantastic. But it's so interesting to hear because with rugby, it's a lot like soccer in the sense of like with the Crew. I've talked to a lot of people with the Crew, and they have the academy, like you said, and sometimes they have players go through the academy. They're there forever, and then they start their career there, right? So it is more of like a it's I don't want to say it's easier to build a culture, but I
Yeah.
mean, there's less variables. Like people aren't just coming in and out like all the time. So what an interesting challenge for you.
Yeah,
I,
there's a
Go
lot
ahead.
less money involved too in rugby,
Sure.
which plays a factor, and so like nobody's earning millions, and so it's
Yeah.
and that's an interesting piece. Of guys have got to have a balance. Like you settle in and you make a place a home, and they're also thinking about their career post sport and where they establish their family and baseball. Like you like, do I buy a home and set up my family here because I might be in another city next week or next year, or wherever it might be. So it's a really interesting dynamic to build. You can build a culture where people call it home.
Yeah.
In other sports and in baseball, that's a little more difficult. But you've got that's I've enjoyed as part of the Red Sox. There's still certainly there's like a level of like love for the game and love for the team, certainly in Boston and the fans that are
Yeah.
there.
That's right.
They're very passionate. But then you also
Yeah.
have your people want to be involved in the organization because of sort of what's done before, what it stands for, some of the values that align. But
Yeah.
it's like anywhere in the world. The best teams and the worst teams in the world usually have pretty similar words on the wall. But
Mm.
there's a difference between those who actually like live those words. You walk into an organization and you see the list of who we are, and then you look around and observe people and see if that's actually who we are. And
Yeah.
so the informal induction of what people are doing around you, is it actually what's written or is it not, becomes quite a big differentiating piece.
What are some ways you hold people accountable to those things written on the wall? And I shouldn't even say like accountable, but how do you help build those systems where like this is what we do? It's not just on the wall.
I would say from the experiences that I've had, like people actually helping to build those systems and decide on those things. Like, is this who we are, or is this who we're trying to be, or pretending to be, or who we wish to be? Even
Mm.
like people will always mention to me over here the book about the All Blacks, like Legacy, James Kerr, and even knowing that environment very well, and knowing that there's a lot in there that is you'd walk in and you'd see is true, but it's also like this is what it would look like ideally on a daily basis, but it has fluctuations.
Yeah.
But if it's something that's been established by somebody else and then you have to try to fit to it, doesn't always like work so well. But if you've actually built the process of it, if it's
Mm.
ours instead of yours that I need to follow, and I'm doing it for me and us, I'm not doing it for you. Then you don't have to worry about buy-in because you're not selling anything. The
Right.
people are already invested because they've put some of themselves into the process, and so if it's not their if it's their values, they'll live them. And so if those
Yeah.
values come from who we are, and at least finding a common thread among the group, or recruiting and bringing people into the organization who fit that philosophy, they might
Mhm.
have a different vision or a different skill set that helps you evolve. But if it's the kind of person that fits and lives the way that we say that we will live, then you don't have to build it as much because it comes from within. And then people are happy to be held accountable or hold each other accountable to it because it's not about me versus you. It's just about us living that, which is the thing that we agreed on. And so
Yeah.
there's less of a concern around fracturing relationships through having to have accountability or trying to live on like a level of false harmony, and try and get people on the same song sheet who are singing a different tune.
Sure. That's why I think it's nothing like groundbreaking when I say this, but like identifying those core values like at the beginning of a year, or if it's organizationally, like, and making sure they are communicated clearly. And once those are set, it's a lot easier. I talked to a team the other day about this. Once these are set, the team can hold each other accountable in a way where, like, if someone maybe checks you on something, or you're like, oh yeah, you're right, like, because we're all on the same page here. And everyone has those days where they maybe need to, remember the core values or something. I always say the core values are like a team's compass, and they can help
Yep.
eliminate decision making, right? And bring clarity of mind. Because if one of our core values, if I'm working with a college, is like, I don't know, discipline, and one day you're not feeling great and you don't want to do your homework or whatever it is, it's not a decision. Right? It's just, what you have to do even if you don't want to do it. So, I mean, building these core values are something that it's not groundbreaking new science, right? Like goal setting or anything, but like it's something that is so, so important. It sounds like that's kind of a priority in the work that you do.
It is, and looking try to establish culture where just from the accountability piece, like you're not trying to catch someone out, you're trying to help them out. So it's not like,
Exactly.
I got you, you're wrong, you get this punishment. It's actually like it's you receive it as me like helping you because I know you're going to do the same for me.
Right.
And so and also we're human, so we veer off track, we drift, we like
Exactly.
our things fluctuate and our standards will dip. And so you kind of if
Yeah.
you know, can you please point out to me in the way that works for me? So the communication style side of it, like what works for you,
Yeah.
what works for me in terms of if you see me going off track, or if I look like if I'm distracted, or if I'm dipping on this is the way that works for me for you to approach on that. If you understand, you can speak to people in their language or their way of receiving information rather than yours.
Yeah.
Then yes, you build that over time, but that comes from getting to know people, and some of that is cohesion and keeping the same people around. And
Sure.
the more people change, the more you go back to square one again, and you're always like in the learning pit, and you're always at the first stage. So,
Yeah.
which is in a very business led sports environment is very different because there can be a lot more turnover. I don't think it's something we should just say, oh, it is what it is. There always is.
Sure.
There's evidence of it being so, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
Yeah, that's so true. And as you were speaking there, I was thinking, like, how do you build trust with such a high turnover, high changing? Because we know trust takes time to build, right? So how do you build trust with the athletes that you work with and help introduce those processes when there is a lot of turnover and there is a lot of movement?
Yeah, I would say but the approach, and we've got a great group of coaches who see it in a similar way around like get to know somebody as a person and build a relationship as a person, and then build the professional scaffolding around that, and
Love
then
that.
then make your way to the detail. Whether you choose certain quotes, that they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and
Yep.
those sort of quotes that come through, but being really genuine with it, but also I guess knowing that yeah, being able to understand like where they're at. Baseball is a fascinating environment that's very, very different for me, which has been a great challenge and a great puzzle because I would say each staff, players, everybody's in at least some level of constant awareness of like, am I going to keep my job? there's a
Yeah.
level of like of insecurity and a level of like safety that isn't there because for a player they might go really well, so they get to keep their job, or they might get so well that they become a valuable trade piece and then they get traded. So it's not even like you
100%.
completely know that you're safe and secure here if you go well, because that might just at least it increases your value. So wherever you go, that value goes with you, which is a good thing
Sure.
if you're just looking at career trajectory. But
Yeah.
yeah, from it like the contract terms are usually like relatively short. People are always either they're either like in their final contract year or they're 1 year away from it or 2 years away from it, going by like 1 or 2 or 3 year contracts, and things are measured very analytically or numerically. And so yeah, it's a very interesting sort of space to be in because it's a sport that has a lot of I would say accepted turnover cycle. People
Yeah.
always feel like they're not too far away from that turnover cycle, no matter how well they're doing. And so it's a really it's an interesting piece because it's hard to trust people if you don't feel safe
Right.
already. And
Yeah.
so it's yeah, it's a fascinating beast.
Absolutely. I mean, with so many unique challenges, we have something in common. I'm assuming you played rugby growing up.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that,
Played
yeah,
growing up, didn't play to
yeah,
a high level, sort of
sure,
semi-professional kind of club level, and then decided that I would be much more effective working on the support side of the game than on the player side.
sure. Yeah. So I was a wrestler, but now I work at a golf training facility. So I would say, I don't know, probably like 70% of my clientele is currently golfers. And what's been interesting, I'm on the mental performance side of things. And what has been really
Yeah,
interesting for me has been wrestling. Everyone says like wrestling is the most mentally tough sport there is. And in a lot of ways it is. When it comes to pushing yourself, you have to be incredibly disciplined. You have to work very hard. You have to do things like make weight, which is very unique. I mean, you worked with some
yeah,
MMA athletes, so I'm sure you know a little bit about that. It can be brutal. But that being said, sports like golf and baseball are very different because they're mentally challenging in different ways because you have time to think.
yeah.
Wrestling, you're just out there doing. You got 6 minutes. Yeah, we'll build some pre-match routines. We'll get you squared away. I'll give you some breathing exercises. We can do some visualization stuff. But sports like golf and baseball are like you have nothing but time to think. So that's been an adjustment for me. I'm curious with you.
Mm.
What are some ways where you grew up with a rugby background? What are some things you've learned about the game of baseball when it comes to leadership and culture, and or it's something else, just something you've learned
Yeah,
about being in a
I
new
think
sport?
I think even on the mental side, like because obviously rugby is a very physical sport. It's like if I hit you harder than you hit me, I win in a sense.
Yeah, it's a
And
lot like
so
wrestling in many
it's a
ways.
I'll at least win that collision, which builds momentum, which means we can get some team success off it. But then
Sure.
baseball, like the mental battle of like being a starting pitcher on the mound, where like you're in the spotlight. It's all centered on you,
Yeah.
and you've got control over most things, but not really because the situation adds the invisible pressure. And so now I understand more about the psychological battle between what's going on actually inside the game. But even stepping back and watching, I'd say coming from sports where there's been a real emphasis sort of within the modern age of professional rugby around like if you make an error and how you learn from it and flush it quickly and get into the next moment. Don't dwell on the last one. Don't live too
Yeah.
far in the future or the past. Just
Yeah.
be in now, and those things will only affect now if you let them, and if you believe that they do. And but seeing as an example, like a pitcher for the Red Sox might something might not go well, and if they don't show visible frustration and disgust at themselves, the fans think they don't care. So they
Right.
feel like they need to show that they're annoyed or pissed off about it. But you should just not let that impact you. But there's a really interesting like dynamic involved that probably doesn't exist in some other sports where
It's interesting.
uh, you want to teach somebody to like well accept that as like a learning moment. You can be frustrated about it, but you can kind of move on and not let it influence the next pitch, the next inning, the next at bat, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But the fans think you don't care if you strike out and don't break your bat, or someone doesn't smash the phone off the wall. And that's seen as like passion. And if you don't have that, then you don't care. And so
Yeah.
there's an interesting balance of almost needing to play into that because otherwise there comes more pressure. And so there's a
Sure.
real balance there that doesn't exist maybe in so much in other sports. But the
Especially in Boston.
psychological the mental game of baseball is far more impactful than the physical. And like rugby is probably fifty
Hmm.
fifty. It can be more physical sometimes. But yeah, it's a very, very mental game. And like very how often like how many sports are there that you're gonna fail more than you succeed? That's just part of baseball. Like you live in
Yeah.
either side of 500 in terms of like team performance or your own performance. And
So
so
true.
there's a lot of failure, there's a lot of um, learning moments, there's a lot of information to gather and to process. And so it's not very often that like if you have a bad moment, it doesn't mean it's a bad day. It might be like
Mm.
you might just have a bad start, but it ends up being a good day. Or you might have a good start, but it ends up being a bad day because you drop off the cliff later. But there's the acceptance of like one bad moment means bad day if you let it snowball.
Yep.
But not many times you're like, oh, there's another game tomorrow, play the same team. Like, and you play, is like the 162 plus playoffs is its own challenge of just continual focus and reframing and resetting
Yeah.
and day in day out, not just performance, but like trying to find ways to get better that many days in a row. Um, Having 13, 14 days before you get a day off to reset. It's a really, really interesting sort of a unique challenge. And so there's so much of the mental side wrapped up within baseball that we can improve their floor with the physical side. Like if they can throw faster, hit harder, run quicker to steal bases, like at least we can raise the floor a little bit. But the
Sure.
ceiling is set by the mental side, and the consistency of even being able to access the physical attributes that we try to put in behind their baseball skill. So
Yeah.
we can give them the best supercar in the world to take out there into the race, but like the ability to like focus and drive it in those pressure moments that stack day in day out. You get another opportunity to strike out, you get another at bat coming up. Like
Hmm.
you get hit for a home run. Well, you've got like a lot more pitches to go. You still got another 70 to get through. So it's a really, really interesting psychological sport, I think.
It's one where I love how you brought up acceptance. I always say my mental philosophy is rooted in acceptance. And in a sport like baseball, where even the best players, the absolute best players, technically they're going to lose more than they win when it comes to at bats. No one's
Yeah,
batting over 500. Right. So, like, it's something that no one ever wants to lose or no one ever wants to strike out, but it is something that you have to plan for because most of the time, even the best of the best, this is something that's going to happen. So, I love how
yeah.
you touched on that acceptance piece there. That's something that I'm super passionate about.
Yeah, I think I was talking to a friend of mine who's works with one of the rugby teams across in Chicago. I was fortunate last week went and spent some time with some people that I know and still involved with the All Blacks and the Irish team, and they played a game in Chicago. And then a group
Oh,
that I
cool.
work with in Austin now work in rugby in the Hounds environment in Chicago. And Will, who was one of our players with me in Austin, is now the general manager of that team, and we were chatting around the same sort of thing. And I don't remember which tennis player it was. One of the high level players who was speaking about was talking about what was your win percentage over your career, 82,
Yeah.
83%. But like, what about points? Like 52% or 53% or
I've
something like
seen
that.
this
And so,
video. I think it was Roger
yeah,
Federer, right?
yeah. And
Yeah.
which is just like each layer that you sort of zoom out or zoom in, whichever perspective you sort of take on it, it's that same, the same concept.
100%, and that's a great clip. And he's speaking to athletes, or sorry, he's speaking to at a college graduation, right? So
Yeah.
like these are skills that go way beyond sport, right? Like dealing with failures. You're going to interview for a job, you're not going to get it. You're going to go through tough times in your life, and things aren't going to work out. But having the skills put in place to maybe not make things perfect or maybe not handle things perfectly, but at least knowing you have a plan for them can go such a long way. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. You mentioned in your answer earlier about basically, you described how the Red Sox really focus on the holistic athlete, right? All the little pieces of the puzzle, right? You mentioned the physical, you mentioned the mental piece, you mentioned the culture piece. So I'm curious how an organization at the highest of levels integrates all those things and how they work together.
Yeah, I would say it's an ongoing project, still trying to find like the best way to make it fit for like the this era of the organization. I think even just having an open mind to bringing like me somewhere into the system, having watched one game of baseball in my life before coming in.
Yeah, I love
But at
that.
least understanding people and systems and structures, and like our director above me, he's very thorough. He knows policies, procedures, politics at the top, and in terms of our sets our philosophy, and the coaches in our system are exceptional at the detail and delivering the detail. And in between, I can help the policies and procedures and philosophy flow through. And it's a coach development role. So it's like growth of our
Mm,
coaches who are the ones who actually interact with the players more on a daily basis. And like, do they have the tools and support to deliver within A, our philosophy, but B, the framework that fits for them. So I don't write the program and ask them to deliver it. It's player focused, coach led, coordinator supported, director driven. And so
love that.
the there might be some other systems out there where the coordinator's writing 300 programs and sending them out for the coaches just to implement. But like the daily adjustments that need to happen in baseball has to come with a cold face, and that like our coaches know the look in a player's eyes when they walk into the weight room, and I don't know that from another city and behind a laptop. So
Sure.
I can't write an effective adjustment for that player's program, but our coaches can because they get the FaceTime and so I think there's elements of that within this organization which I really like. Like you want to be able to like set a new standard around both player development and coach development. So there's a lot of support around like growing our not just our players but coaches as both people and coaches. And
Yes.
like what are the pieces of your life that we can help you thrive in, that will help you thrive in the coaching baseball context. And when you're winning over here, you're winning over here, and how do those two sort of weave in rather than right, baseball season, kiss the rest of your life goodbye,
Yeah.
baseball only, and then switch back. And it's a seesaw version of balance. And so
Yep.
looking at it through that lens, it's probably I don't know any other baseball organisations, but people within ours who have come from others see that as a difference around our views of like we've got people in the building, not just work machines.
Mm,
But you have to be a machine about your work sometimes to get it done. But
sure.
it's finding the best ways to approach that. Yeah, so like looking outside the square, I think it sounds like we're relatively forward thinking and progressive around what we aim to do within the strength and conditioning space. But we're able to do that because we've got high level leadership support who believe that the area is important, therefore value it, therefore they will support that, and the same on the mental side.
Mm,
And I'd say there's a lot of the type of conversations that I'm used to laterally across departments. Like everybody's got elite department silos, but
sure.
are they actually connecting and collaborating and working together with like the player development piece as the forefront? So we can't dive 12 layers deep into the a particular pitcher like the pitching department can, because they'll zero in on just those players, and we're across the whole group. But we can go to like level 3 with the pitching side and help get even more value out of what we're trying to do and those levels of depth and those sort of spaces. So what's the player doing? Therefore, what is the coach seeing? Therefore, how can we help? Therefore, how can we bring other departments into alignment and kind of be the glue that pulls all the pieces together. So that's something that I enjoy about at least the mindset of this organisation. It's probably just like it's a bias. It feels familiar to me because it's what I'm used to.
Sure.
Um, and so they're the pieces where there may be no right way or wrong way, but that's the kind of environment that I know I feel like I fit and I can contribute, rather than being a misfit and you get frustrated by what's happening around you and they don't think you're doing the way that they think you should be doing them. And so you find a place that at least thinks in a similar way where you can contribute as best as you possibly can.
Simon, just throughout this conversation, like I can sense your passion for this work. You're very thoughtful. You're very much. I mean, you can just tell. You can just tell this is what you're supposed to be doing, right? And through this podcast, I've been lucky enough to talk to so many people who are living out their passions. I'm kind of curious with you. Where did this passion for leadership begin?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's like I initially started as an academy strength and conditioning coach. So like I worked in a school did a little bit of coaching, found out that there was like a physical performance or strength and conditioning actual career existed, and sort of started with that as an avenue. And I really enjoyed just, I would say, like seeing players, helping players achieve what they wanted to achieve within their career, but finding ways to solve that puzzle through like programming and strength and conditioning. And then, but I'm a lot less passionate now about finding ways to write programs and coach
Workout plans
programs.
and
That it's
stuff.
the same feeling, but towards coaches as it was towards players or towards organizations or executives in a company in a business somewhere. The same sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that they're probably the parts I always ended up like leaning towards more. The one of the teams that I worked for when I was at Crusaders, we did a lot of theming and narrative and storytelling around building our seasons and our campaigns, and like the journey together over multiple years. And like I
Love that.
think when I first applied for the lead role, there's probably like 200 and something applicants, but I was sort of like I was the assistant wanting to move into like the leading role there, and I'd led other lower level programs in a similar way. But there were people more experienced than me that probably wrote better programs and had more interest in the S&C side.
Yeah.
But I could cut up a video and tell a story and help the coach's vision pervade through an environment and find ways to help people want to live it. And so
Mm,
starting to lean into that a little bit more and finding out that that's kind of what spins my wheels a fair bit. Like I probably enjoyed more when I left from that team, and the person I had next to me or the team that I had around me elevated to lead it. Watching them like win their own was more rewarding than being in the ones that I was involved with, because you're still just like you play a little bit of a part, everyone celebrates, you're like, cool, how do we do
yeah.
the next one? How can we do it differently?
Yeah.
And so the journey up until that moment, I enjoy a lot more than that actual moment. Some people live for that moment.
For the
That
moment.
moment's like very fleeting for me. I'm like, what's the like kick my sandcastle over so I can have fun like building it again is
Yeah.
sort of that's the fun part for me.
100%. We have, Simon, we have a lot in common. Even for me, I was coaching wrestling for a while after college, and I just noticed was spending most of my time caring about talking to the athletes like after practice, seeing what was going on in their life. Like I wasn't,
Yeah.
they had great technical coaches, and I just found myself personally, selfishly, caring less and less about that side of things and more about the individual as a whole and seeing how that affected their performance. So that's kind of how I dip my toe into this world a little bit. I'm like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go all into that. Now that those jobs started to exist, I kind of got in at a good time. So that's interesting. You mentioned there about just you brought up a few times about how you help coaches, right? I think this is something. It's a forgotten part sometimes of the work that I do and the work I think it sounds like that you do around building cultures and systems and processes. The coaches are often forgot about, especially when it comes to balance, well-being, things like that. So I'm curious how you
Mm.
help coaches. If you kind of have a message for coaches, I do know that every person and every individual is different, but
Yeah.
just like a general message or something where you're like, hey, this is something that a lot of coaches deal with and you help them with.
It is. I think there's a lot of really good writing, and like Cody Royal operating it. He's written a couple of really good books and Second Set of Eyes and different things around like coaching coaches and helping coaches. And
Sure.
from a systems view, we often look at like, okay, now our players, we've got to make sure, okay, we've got like technical coaches, physical support, mental support, nutrition support, outside life support, like their off off field development manager, how you finances, budgets. What's your job going to be after this? What do you study? Do you want to learn Spanish? Do you play guitar? That all of those pieces around the players, and you come out one more level, and like the coaches, especially like a head coach or a head like a manager of a team that carry like even more pressure and expectation. But like,
Yeah.
what's the support network around them, and like who
Yeah.
supports the support staff? Because
That's good.
when players transition into a coaching role, they very soon find out that like these guys do like five times more hours than I did when I thought I was doing a lot.
Yep.
And they don't even get to do the fun part of going out and play. You've got to sit back
Right.
and watch it all unfold with no influence. So,
Yeah.
well, they try to have influence down the radio or from the stands sometimes, but
Sure.
you, yeah, even that has a level of being able to sort of disconnect and remove a little bit, like set other people up to go and write their own story and step out of the way. But
Yeah.
there's very much well, it's probably an emerging space, but there's certainly not the level of support around like coaching coaches as there is around coaching players, and supporting
Right.
coaches as there is around supporting players. And like if you think of it, an environment that's sort of low resource, you can try to have like one person influence 50 players
Hmm.
as like a mental skills support, for example, or you can have support for five coaches who can influence 10 people each,
Yeah.
and layer it out that way. And like if you can, you might have a very well prepared playing group, but a coach that can't handle the pressure, and struggles with a certain whatever the moment or occasion or whatever it might be. And if they don't have support around that, it's going to be hard for them to then tap into and get the best out of the players that are in front of them. So
Yep.
um, the support structures around coaches and the growth and both professional and personal development for coaches, so that they're not just you're not only investing in their growth as a coach and a professional like work tool. You're trying to help at least create space, if not support other areas of life for them as well, and have understanding around that becomes
Hmm.
like a really crucial piece, because we're like people say you're a human being before you're a human doing, and like one of the things that you do is just one of the things that you do. There's a lot of other elements to a player, to a coach, other than just their job.
100%. And I think that's forgotten about, especially by fans. I mean, whenever it comes to coaches, you lose a couple games and people are calling for your job, right? And your livelihood and your well-being. It's a very tough thing. And I've learned a lot through my school about just how that can affect coaches, can
Yeah,
affect their personal life. It can be brutal. So having that support system is something that I'm trying to get more out there. That's why I'm asking more about it on the podcast. So a lot of coaches listen, and hopefully this can be a good resource for them.
yeah. And some of that you go one layer higher, even as you've got like executives and ownership groups that are under even more significant pressure because of the
Yeah.
investment that's going into it, and the fan base, and like how do they cope with that pressure? And if their only outlet is, okay, I hear you, fire the coach.
Right.
And so it's always like, how many layers out do you go around the support structures around operating in a very like high pressure environment? And sometimes it can be the right call, but it's probably like the reason for making the call is the key thing, and whether it's
Mm.
reactive, proactive, whether it's just around a fit. That like people need time to get results sometimes, but that's very seldom what high pressure and sometimes high paid coaches, they don't have that leeway to like have time to put things in place to for it to come to fruition. Like sometimes you walk in and pick up a team that's just about to win a championship based on the poor old coach that put in 5 years of not winning and
Yeah.
laid all the foundations, and you pick up somebody else's great work and you get to wear the crown. So
Yep.
it's a to be able to acknowledge that is really important. That was another part of us that when the Crusaders had the history of a lot of three-peats and titles and went 8 years without one.
Yep.
And they went from that into like 4, 7, or 8 in a row. But that there was the four in a row that we got to enjoy was built on the 4 years before that didn't win, in a
Exactly.
certain way. And you
Exactly.
found ways to come in and just tweak things a little bit to make it fit the group that was there. And make you
Yeah.
just made some small adjustments rather than wholesale change. And so it was very, very seldom does a coach coming in trying to be the savior to fix something that's not working get the time that it takes to put things in place that will A, make it work, or B, have it sustainable rather than just like a quick hit and drop.
Yeah, I think that sustainable piece is huge, especially when building systems, which is why you've seen success because you prioritize that, right? Which I think is huge. We're starting to wind down here. We're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask one random question. What is something you learned from working with mixed martial artists? Just because a lot of wrestlers listen who end up being MMA in MMA, so I'm curious, just on your end.
Yeah, I think it's probably similar to what we talked about before, just like the acceptance or deal like you're dealing with like not every situation's kind of going to go your way, but if you
Yeah,
if you get if you get frustrated, you get lost, and if you get lost, you panic, and if you panic in that sport, you're done pretty quickly.
there's
um
physical consequences.
yeah, and so just like like understanding car, like it's such a interesting balance because like calm and patience and control in a physically aggressive sport. So
Yeah.
you can't be like just chilled out and zen because you'll get knocked out. But you can't
Yeah.
be, yeah. But you've got to be very very present in the moment and not get frustrated and panic and get caught out making an error because one small error can lead to a pretty big result. And so
Sure.
it's been I'd say like the balance between those of having calm and patience and control and accuracy in a sport that you kind of need to be relatively like um fizzed up for
Yeah,
mentally. Like
for sure.
you can't just go in and play it for fun.
Yeah.
So there's that balance is really interesting and really fascinating. And I mean, there's probably more of an element of needing the physical attributes to be able to like to be able to perform in the sport and be able to last and be able to focus and be calm and concentrate under fatigue.
Yeah.
But the mental side of it, it's a very much a 50-50 sport of how do you have that balance of like wanting to go on the attack while being and be aggressive while being calm and patient and accurate. How do you do both of those things at once is such an interesting challenge.
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up. I think when we hear the words fight or flight, it can get it's almost like a bad rap. Like it's people don't realize that the fight or flight response exists to serve us, right? Like it's not
Yep.
all about getting completely out of the fight or flight response. That you need it to survive, you need it to perform to your very best, right? You need those things. It served us evolutionarily, and it can serve our performance in a positive way, especially in something like a fight, right? But that being
Yeah.
said, there are things you can do, specific breathing exercises, visualization beforehand to get more prepared for the moment, things like that, that can help limit that response so you can use it in a way that serves you instead of doing the opposite, right? So it's not about completely getting out of the fight or flight response. It's how do we use it to our advantage?
Yeah.
I'm so happy
Yeah.
you
And how
touched on
you
that.
acknowledge and access and utilize. That's a
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fascinating piece.
So interesting. Thanks for indulging me there. I had to ask a
No,
little
it's
little
good.
bit about the
All good.
MMA there.
Yeah.
We end the podcast with the same question. It's a very broad and general question. But what is your favorite thing about sports?
I would say the thing that I've sort of enjoyed, the thing I've enjoyed the most is it's so people focused and people centric. So like it could be somebody gets to live out their dream and you get to see how much they enjoy that, or you get to see even just like the irrational passion that fans have for a
Yeah.
sport. The like for a somewhat the way someone will deck out their entire house with
Yeah.
memorabilia of this team they've never played for, but they love this
Especially
team
in
so much,
Boston.
and so
Especially in
but it's their
Boston.
city and it's their home, and so
Yeah.
yes, it's I find it just incredible, just like the human element and like the connection piece that like sport can kind of can bring, like whether it's bringing people together or driving them apart. Like
Yeah.
it leads to emotion and like very like the human elements of sport are the piece that I enjoy the most because you just get to see the impact that it can have.
So true, and I couldn't echo everything you said more. Well, Simon, I learned a ton from you today. I'm actually really looking forward to going back and listening to this episode, whether it's about giving coaches the resources they need, whether it's about building specific processes, even some. I learned some mental performance things from you today too, which is great. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on. I learned a ton. I know my audience will too. It really does mean a lot.
All good, no. So I appreciate the time, the conversation, and like say good questions, and then just taking all the tangents that arise. So I pass on things that I've learned from the the people that I've been able to spend some time around and being fortunate. So it's yeah, always a pleasure, and we just kind of carry on and yeah, see what the next adventure is and what pops up the next day.
That's right. Well, I'm looking forward to keeping in touch and continuing following your journey as well. Is there anything you want to get out there? Anything you want to plug? Social media handles, website, newsletter, anything like that you want to get out there?
Nothing specific. I probably like so this past year I've like right learn Red Sox, learn baseball, learn our people,
Sure.
and get those systems and structures. I've just started to move into like a little bit more coaching coaches sort of consultancy on the outside through LinkedIn's probably where most of the professional pieces are for me, and links through to the website and booking pieces there. But just starting to connect across a few different industries and look to be a support for people like I kind of wish I had when I was
Yep.
starting out, or even right now being able to like find a good mentor and somebody to bounce ideas off. So just sort of started to move into that space, but I'm not big on the marketing side. But I'll get there once I have some time to think about that stuff a little bit more.
Sure, sure. One thing at a time. Well, Simon,
Yeah,
thank you so much again. I truly did learn a ton from you, and it was honestly just nice connecting. I love connecting with people in the
absolutely.
field of sports. So, thank you so much again to you, Simon, and to everyone else for taking the time to listen. I know you're all super busy, so spending the hour with us truly does mean the world. We'll talk soon.